In our last lesson, we had our arpeggios going. Now we're going to look at adding another layer by processing the MIDI in serial. So select the chord and hold down the Shift button and select the velocity, and now Command G to group them all to a MIDI effect rack. Now they're all contained in one chain. As I go to the chain view on the left, and using Command D, I can duplicate the entire chain. Now I don't need two identical arpeggiators. So on the second chain, I'll deactivate the arpeggiator and actually just delete it. And I really don't need the velocity on there either. I want a consistent velocity for these chords. And these held chords, which I'm now transposing down 12 semitones to a lower octave, are going to harmonize with the arpeggios. So now I'll use Command R to rename each chain in the rack, so that I don't get lost later on. And now I'll go back to the MIDI effects, and I'll grab another C minor harmonic scale for a third chain. And currently it's just playing one randomized note, because all three of these chains in the rack are receiving the same randomized note from the random that's outside of the rack to the left. So that randomized MIDI note goes into the rack, and it's split into three parallel layers. Now on this third one, I've put an arpeggiator at eighth notes. And I'm going to randomize the incoming note. I want it to play a simple rhythmic pattern of one note, but I don't want it to play the exact same note as what's triggering the chords. So that's why I've randomized that incoming note, which again, of course, is still being forced through the harmonic scale, in which I've just transposed up 2 octaves, 24 semitones in the scale plug-in there. And I've shortened the gate, and we'll rename it counterpoint. So this is creating a counterpoint against the chords, just playing with the rate, the arpeggiator rate, creating different rhythmic patterns at quarter notes now. And I can just solo it. And there's the counterpoint. And here's our chords. And our arpeggios. So these are 3 different layers all stacked from a single incoming MIDI note. That MIDI note is being randomized every time it repeats, and those randomized notes are being fed through the 3 chains of the MIDI effect rack, which of course are all going through a C minor harmonic scale. Now I'm going to reduce the maximum velocity of the counterpoint so it's not so dominant. Get it more sort of mixed appropriately with the other elements. So there's the counterpoint without being randomized, and now it's randomized again to separate it from the chords. And now we have this really dynamic, complicated, full spectrum harmony from a single incoming MIDI note. The kind of thing I would never probably be able to come up with otherwise.